Police Board to order. We would like to acknowledge land on which we live as the traditional territory of the Ktunaxa, the Syilx, and the Sinixt people, as home to many diverse, the Métis and many diverse Aboriginal persons. We honor their connection to the land and rivers and respect the importance of the environment to our strength as a community. Would someone like to move adoption of the agenda as presented? Thank you, and seconded by Sue. Okay, and all those in favor? Carried. Shiloh, do you want the specifics of names, or are you just good with moved, carried?
I'm good at that. I can see, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Moving on to item 3, adoption of the minutes. Motion is in order to adopt the police board regular minutes of the October 12th meeting, and I hope someone was, we have some new people, but I think all 4 of you remember then, so.
Yeah.
Any irregularities there? Anybody see any errors or omissions? Okay, seeing none, those all in a motion is then at hand. Thank you. Seconder, thank you. All in favor? Great. Okay, moving on to item 4, presentation, audiences with the board. Introduction of the newest Nelson Police Department member.
Hello, everyone. It's not the hot seat.
Yeah. It's more intimidating in my interview.
It's a small room.
Yeah. Yeah. Hello.
Hello.
I'm Carolyn. I'm Carlin. Not too sure what you're wanting me to share just about myself. I grew up in Nelson, so I'm super excited to be here. Very excited to be policing here. Yeah, I just got back from the JI a month ago, so it was a very cool experience. I spent January to April there. My class was quite big, so returning here for the summer was really exciting. A lot of hands-on training, especially just with us being a small department. I feel like I went back with really good experiences to the JI, and then I was there September to November. But yeah, very happy to be home, policing here. Yeah, I feel like I grew up in middle school and high school here, just like feeling very safe walking the streets at any time. So I'm just happy to hopefully contribute to that.
Yeah, well, that's wonderful.
That's great.
Chief, do you have any words that you'd like to say about your newest recruit that's come on?
How fantastic she's doing. Well, Carlin was one of our dispatchers, one of our strong dispatchers for a while before she got on. And I think that's a nice segue into the policing. You understand a lot of what's happening, a lot of dynamics. The radio calls obviously are second nature to her. I can't recall enough of it to speak too much on it about your college hockey career. But I think that would be of interest to people too. I always found that interesting. Wouldn't mind sharing a few details on that.
Yeah, I grew up playing hockey here. I didn't graduate here because grade 10 and 12, I went to a hockey academy in the Okanagan. From there, I went to the University of Ottawa and played 5 years of university hockey there. I still play hockey. It's definitely, yeah, just something to help me cope with stress or just to have fun with friends and everything. So it's just beer league now that I play, but yeah, I definitely still very much enjoy it. So.
Oh, that's great. Well,
That's awesome.
I have a little gift.
Oh.
So I guess we should do the official.
Little me.
So you're the new recruit and I'm the new mayor. We've been both working about the same amount of time now. I'm now at 30, this is December the
13th?
14th. So I've been the mayor for about 34 days. And you said that you've been back from,
I got back, I started the 18th, I think, of November.
yeah,
Yeah.
so we're pretty darn close. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. There you go.
Yeah, welcome aboard.
Thanks,
Thank you, guys.
Great to have you here.
Thanks.
Yeah, she graduated on November the 10th, and I got to go. That was my first
Right.
JIBC graduation ceremony too. It was quite nice.
Yeah.
They had to move it to a bigger venue. There was so many recruits graduating, and they had a bike band there, and all the chiefs from all the other departments that had
Cool.
graduating and recruits there. So it's nice to be able to put up the badge.
Must have been quite some time since they've had an in-person ceremony like that too.
I don't know if that was the first one, but it was certainly the biggest one they cut in.
Yeah, I think they still had them during COVID, but very limited. So yeah, it was nice because I even, like, my whole family got to come down and watch. So
Great.
yeah, yeah, very nice. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you. I like the timing on that. We need to have everybody just outside the
Room?
I'll do my best.
Okay, that's
Just step right in.
to step right in. That's excellent.
That's what I was thinking too. is
That's
maybe
fine.
Go get her and she goes,
Yeah, it's like,
here's the doorway.
yeah. Okay, well, that's great to have a lovely young woman on board with the team here. So that's exciting. And on to number 5, public participation. The police board will permit comments from the public on issues the board is presently dealing with, or on any other issue that is of interest to the general public. Comments from individual members of the public will be limited to a maximum of 5 minutes, and all comments during the session may be limited to 15 minutes in total. We have 3, well, we also have the press. 3 members of the public are here this evening, and Justin from the radio station. So is anybody wanting to come and try out the hot seat? We made those red in City Hall.
Since I was last at a meeting, I moved to Nicusk and now I moved back. So I'm in the new Care Seniors building there by Lakeside. And I have lived here since 1980 and my family's here too. So that's nice to have grandkids and sons. But I'm Madeline McKay and taught 20 years at the college in Castlegar. And I've helped form the West Kootenai People for Racial Justice group. I'm one of the co-founders that started the day after George Floyd was murdered. And we're glad to have new chief and vice assistant, deputy. And a wonderful board to be working with too, as we really get serious about diversity and inclusion in our community and anti-racism work here. I was listening to the radio last week and really disturbed to hear a story, not in our jurisdiction, but very similar to one that we have just heard in our jurisdiction as well a number of years ago here, but that raises the question about how people are transported by the police after they put them in the back of their vehicle. And it was the story, you probably heard it as well, of a man who was handcuffed and thrown in the back and not put in a seatbelt. And the driver of the vehicle had to come to a quick stop, and the man sustained head injuries and is paralyzed. I've heard 3 similar stories over my time, as I say, since 1980 of living in Nelson, with people being handcuffed and put in the back of our vehicles in our police department here, and being very uncomfortable. And it seemed like that was the intentional effort. And one was a story of someone being pulled out of an accident scene and coming to consciousness with the breathalyzer forced in his face, a man of color, and nearly bleeding to death that night in the cell. And so the question to me is, like, I would love to hear back from you at some point. How are people transported who are handcuffed? Does someone put the seatbelt around them? And secondly, if someone is in need of physical care, what are the protocols for getting him up to emerge instead of putting him overnight in a cell? He had committed no crime. Thank you. Yeah, those are just my current questions.
Thank you. And I do see on our list here for today that there is a letter from the group and about arranging for a meeting in the new year. And so I'm hoping that we can accommodate that. My schedule is looking really full, as is everybody's, but hopefully we can accommodate that meeting so that we can all get to know each other. I'm, of course, like I say, new, so I'm interested in getting caught up and to see how things flow out. So thank you very much for your great questions. Anybody else? Eleanor, please. Sorry.
I just wanted to say something really quickly. I, of course, have also been part of this group, but I'm also a founding board member of Intercultural Kootenai Society, which has been part of the Diversity Advisory Committee development along with Chelsea Gooden. The thing I just wanted to mention to you is we've had a really interesting development in a process that we're working on in the coming year with Intercultural Kootenays. It came about a couple of weeks ago when a young woman in our community let me know that she had had a slur uttered at her by a taxi driver, and she wanted to make a complaint. So I helped her to write a complaint to the taxi company saying, this is not okay. What we discovered, though, was there was an opportunity there to not just complain, but to also give the cab company an opportunity to improve. And so what Intercultural Kootenai Society is going to do when these letters happen, we're going to encourage people to CC us. And then we will also write to local businesses and say, we heard there was a complaint lodged against you. We want to help. Here are some ways that you can improve your intercultural competencies, and try to really create more opportunities for people to find those things, because sometimes we don't recognize the hardship that accompany with that kind of situation. They don't know where to go. And they're sort of lost, like, well, what do I do now? Well, we're all good people here, that kind of thing. So we're going to start to create this opportunity for people to build those competencies through this process. And I just wanted to let you know, because on occasion when these things have happened, I've also CC'd the chief. And I guess one question is, would you like to be CC'd on those kinds of letters? And also to let you know, maybe you don't need to be. I just wanted to sort of put those things out there and let you know about that, because it's exciting and new.
Just have a quick comment. Thank you for that. It's good to know that you're involved in those things. Quite some time ago now, you came and talked to us about Intercultural Kootenays, and a lot of things were just beginning, and I would be interested at some point, it doesn't have to be now, to know, what initiatives you're doing besides that one in the community, because I think your work is really important, and I know that you hired Chelsea, right?
We did, yeah.
Which is great.
And I can tell you very quickly, the bulk of the work has been to establish the website and for her to also offer training that she can do. She's been taking part in other kinds of training and building networks in the region and in the province. The biggest issue is that Intercultural Kootenai Society, through the Resilience BC Anti-Racism Network, receives $7,500 a year. And that is it.
Okay.
So it's a very, very small pot of money. We applied for a 6-figure grant about 2 years ago from the federal government that hasn't moved forward yet. There's been some freeze in that program. So our ability to be able to increase our capacity and do more work, it included having a location, for instance, has been cobbled by that. So it's not that things aren't happening. And in fact, we have some new board members that we're expecting to start in the new year that will start to help to build the diversity of the advisory in that group. But that's really the biggest holdup is, when you apply for money 2.5 years ago, you kind of expect it'll come in at some point. So it's a hurry up and wait situation.
Thanks
Great
so much
question.
for that update.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eleanor. And Eleanor, if you don't mind, make sure that you're, I don't necessarily want to CC about the businesses that need help, but as your more concepts come online in terms of where people can contact you for assistance, I would like to be able to have your contact information or Chelsea's information. So certainly send that to Mayor Morrison at Nelson.ca.
I'll do that. And it is just interculturalkootenays.com. There already is a form on there. So if people do need to report something, they already are able to do that. We catalog those.
Okay. Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much for that. And no.
I got nothing tonight.
Three, 5 minutes each, 15 minutes. That would have been my first trifecta. Wait.
I'll try to think of
Or Justin?
I just want to know, and first of all, thank you everybody for the police report. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Deputy Chief, and your worship as well for having everything. The picture you just took with the new recruit, I've been wanting to do a story of new recruits that come into Nelson, and I wonder if there's any way you can email me that photo just so we can have it on the website and do a proper welcome to the community.
Sure, I'll get you that picture or another one, but it depends on whether you would like to be in it too.
Oh, I'm fine. I'm
Okay.
I'm sure that I brushed my hair at some point this morning. Too. You know, that's always my concern. I keep thinking that you guys got a good look.
So,
going on.
I had to do a little bit of work. I was going hippie there this morning, so I had to.
I'm kind of getting used to the fact that my pictures getting taken all the time. I have to say that's never been something that being front and center has never been my specialty. So it's a bit odd to be having the camera snapped all the time, but no, I would be fine with that. Okay, moving on. We are at, I think we are at number 6, business arising from previous meetings. I see none listed, so I'm going to go on to item number 7, the chief constable's report. 7A, financial report. Over to you, Chief.
Okay, so the financial report is included in your packages where we're at year to date. So overall, we're currently trending to be at 4.2% budget overage this year. A few items just to give you some context of what the reasons behind those are. The obvious one is just with the resourcing pressures we've been facing through the better part of the year has cost us a significant amount of overtime for covering those shifts, making sure that we had minimum numbers on at all times, both for service delivery and officer safety. A few of the training costs were, in a big way, it's been a positive, but we had a fair bit of makeup to do for mandatory training, some significant skill training, different things throughout the year. Just with COVID, for the last 3 years, there's been almost no training. So we're still not caught up, but we made a significant dent in it this year. And probably the biggest impact on the budget has been under the investigational costs. So currently there we're at 438% over. But the reasons for that, there's a couple of main reasons for that. One being searches of password protected and encrypted digital devices. Lots of times those are essential for part of our investigation and determining the actual events and potential criminal charges. And the Crown expects that as well. It needs to be done obviously by professionals. We'll be here as a skill level to get into those devices, or to make sure that the download process is accurate. They can speak to continuity of the data that's downloaded off those devices. But it is getting to be reasonably expensive. Got a few files where we needed to spend money on that. And when you start talking $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 per device, it adds up pretty quickly. Transcriptions is another area where we've had a significant increase in costs. And that's based on the fact that now, at one point, you could submit disclosure to the Crown for charge approval. And included in that was basically an officer would do a summary of whatever the witness statements would say. So it's the officer kind of doing a summary. Recently, the Crown has said that now we need to supply the actual transcription of the statement prior to charge approval. So that increases the number of transcriptions that we had to do quite a bit. So basically every file we take a statement on, it has to get a transcription done. So somebody's paid to do that and we're billed for it. And the last thing is the external investigations that we've had conducted this year. And those are a number of items around the human rights complaints. I'm talking about internal matters of the department, allegations of discrimination. And I think that, although it's been a significant amount of money, it was important that we did it for the sake that it was transparent. It was done by an independent third party and should result in an unbiased outcome. So we had a lawyer who was quite experienced in the Police Act and conducting conduct investigations from previous roles that he's had. So he did the main big investigation, and then the Vancouver Police have done a number of investigations for us that some of them are still ongoing, but we're coming to the end of some of those, so those should be wrapped up relatively soon. That's it, pending any questions.
Chief, the when you said that, or transcription and the other investigation pieces around phones and whatnot, where you need more expertise, those things, I would expect that they're gonna be ongoing larger expenses, so that's gonna be reflected in the next
Yeah.
budget. Yeah.
The biggest portion of that's probably those external investigations, which hopefully we should be through those and not needing any more of those. But you're correct, the investigational techniques
Yeah.
type stuff and the transcription are definitely going to be continuing. So I would expect that those costs will continue and probably continue to rise.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, there's then a motion to receive the financial report from the chief for November the 22nd. Moved, seconded, and seconded. One more chance for further discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor of receipt? Thank you. Moving on to 7B, back to you, Chief, the provisional budget.
Okay, the provisional budget's been a bit of a living document the last 3 months or so with some significant changes to it, but we've kind of come to ground on what was presented at City Council a couple of weeks ago. So we did some work with the Finance Committee, made up of board directors, then back and forth with the CFO and his assistant with the city, try and see where we could maybe do some cost cuts and some moving around of different numbers. Some of the ways we could maybe transfer money from one part of the budget to another to cover off some of those investigational costs. So I think overall we did a pretty good job of trying to mitigate as much as possible the increases. And for the most part, the increases that we had to ask for are basically based on increased wages that are going to result from the retro contract that the Nelson Police Association signed in their collective bargaining agreement, or soon to be signing in their collective bargaining agreement back to 2020. And it ends up being a relatively significant increase just because of the fact that it's, more or less we're going into the going into the third year of when it would be compounded over. So it works out to about a 6.5 or 7% increase. So as I said, the budget, you've all seen the provisional budget. And that's what we submitted at City Council and did a presentation on that. But I think went pretty well, and we had some really good questions and some discussions. So, but in the end, we didn't ask for any additional human resources this year, just being conscious of the fact that there was already a relatively high increase in the overall budget due to the new contract. We're just going to continue to work on ways to streamline the efficiencies of the department and technology that might help reduce some of the costs and lighten some of the workload of some of the officers, so as we don't need to just, go straight to we need additional officers.
Mayor Morrison, when does this become finalized?
By the rules and regulations for the province, March the 31st, it has to be approved. So it will be part of ongoing budget discussions as we move forward, looking at the global budget for the city of Nelson over time. But there is the final date it has to be approved by is March the 31st.
And so is there a chance that the city council would come back to us and, significantly change what's been presented?
I think the chief referred to the fact that we had a fairly fulsome discussion about the budget.
Mhm.
And I think that people understood where the budgetary increases are for this year, and that we're in this inflationary period. We all know that salaries have gone up. We know that there's collective agreements that still have to be ratified, and nobody's taking a zero that I've seen in all of the ratifications that I've been involved with. So we know there's going to be some increased costs, and the fact that we have to reflect back that, there's 2 years that sort of been without a contract.
Mhm.
There has been money put aside, looking at just like an inflationary increase, but given that we're in this high inflation, the requests at the bargaining table have usually been higher.
Mhm.
So I don't see any significant changes. I know that there could be some, opportunity that city staff might continue to work with things around the sort of internal operation like supplies and whatever, just to make sure that we're getting good bids and stuff on ongoing needs like that. But in terms of the majority of the increase is salary related, so it's not like that we can do with any less. So I don't see any significant change coming, but it also gives time for the chief and deputy chief to look and make sure that they didn't leave anything off the table. It goes both ways. They might have found that they forgot something that they need $30,000 for, like it could change. So,
Thank you.
So any other questions on the provisional budget? I think, Cheryl, you don't need that, that's just for information.
Yes.
Okay. Answer. I'll turn that. Maybe Spike can tell me how to set the computer so it doesn't turn off every time.
So it's not just me.
No.
Well, I don't like it to stay on because it drains the battery, but then, you go back and you can't see anything. So 7C, we're looking at the BCAM CP, BCACP update. And now if my counselor Payne was in the room, she'd be holding up the ruler with the little
Yeah.
thing on the little yellow flag that says abbreviations. So,
I didn't intend, especially since we have guests, to explain that.
yes, so back to you, Chief, to do the explanation
Too
on
long to
this.
type it all out, but, so the abbreviations are for the BC Association of Municipal Chiefs of Police and the BC Association of Chiefs of Police. So the municipal chiefs of police, as it determine, is all the municipal forces. So like the Vancouver Police, Saanich, Oak Bay, Delta, there's 11 of them in the province. And the BC Association of Chiefs of Police would be all those police departments plus the RCMP. That's really the difference. So for the report, the past month has been extremely busy with the two chiefs of police committees meeting, both with one larger in-person meeting in Victoria, a couple of online video conference meetings, and then the side committee work that we do as well. So quite a bit to report. So I'm going to just kind of keep it into bullets. And if anybody had any specific questions, then I can come back to it. But it would take quite a while to go through everything. One of the best points of news, I guess, I have to report on is at the last BC ACP meeting, Raj was nominated for and elected to the executive of the BC ACP. So congratulations, Raj, for that. And I think it's going to be great to have him on the executive there. The BC ACP does a lot of work for the departments in that. And then I think sometimes just being geographically isolated from a lot of or all of the other departments, we sometimes get forgotten about a little bit. So it'll be nice to have somebody in the room and bring some of our issues to the table. For the most part, all the police departments have very similar issues, but the odd time we get something unique that would be nice to have a voice at that table. And it also gives him the chance to sort of have the inside track sometimes on some of the new developments and things coming, so we can be prepared for them. ECOMS and the JIBC still dominating a lot of the discussion, which ECOMS doesn't directly affect us, but both of those services have come into some question as far as the service delivery and then the costs in particular for running those services. So increased costs have been passed on to both the police departments and the municipalities that those police departments work in. I was able to have an in-person meeting for the first time on the Mental Health and Addictions Committee that I work with. And we're looking at some developments that came out of that that's hopefully going to give us a better and more regular working relationship with Interior Health here. That committee is also responsible for bringing Health IM, which is a very short description of it. It's basically a roadside use of technology that officers can deal with people who have varying levels of mental health crisis down to just maybe some minor mental health concerns that have come up, but it allows them to provide a little bit more unbiased and clinical assessment of those people to determine what's the best course of action, whether somebody needs to be apprehended, whether or not maybe you can just refer them somewhere, get a hold of a family member. There's there's quite a level of responses that the police have available to them, but oftentimes, just because of the liability and the responsibility that police face when they've been called to deal with somebody who's having some kind of a mental health concern, there's a tendency for police to apprehend more people that probably need to be apprehended. And then if you're apprehending for that, your only authority is to apprehend them, to deliver them to a qualified practitioner. So they do have to take them to the hospital and arrest them and bring them to jail. So we oftentimes find officers at the hospital for significant amounts of time. You know, you have somebody who maybe didn't need to go to the hospital that's been taken there. We've got police officers tied up in the hospital for hours at a time. Therefore, it's causing delays or issues with responding to other calls when people need us. So the health IM system should reduce the number of apprehensions. And then the second factor with it that's a bonus is it's supposed to link directly with the hospital that you'd be taking those people to, and it should give them a bit of a heads up and some information prior to you arriving. So they should be able to have some level of intake completed by the time you get there, and possibly even a plan in place when you get there. So it should reduce the wait times that police are at hospitals as well. So that's supposed to be rolling out here in the coming year. I know when I was in Saskatchewan, we were trying to implement this because Manitoba had it and we're having great success with it. So I've sort of just keep staying one step ahead of it, rolling out in the province I'm at. So I'm looking forward to actually seeing it in action, but I'm pretty excited about it. Also, just on that note, the provincial government is taking more of a hand in addressing some of the addictions issues that we deal with. So police are still going to be a lot of times first responders to the urgent or critical situations, but there's some programs and funding coming on board to help get the health side of things geared up a bit to maybe respond to some of those lower level issues or work directly with police so that some of the things that we're responding to, we have actual expertise in that area with us or close at hand so we can solve them. Decriminalization, I've spoken about a few times, but again, that was a topic at BCACP and just the impact of response that law enforcement is going to face and potentially the impact on the communities where it's occurring in. And then again, I had a good discussion last week at the department heads meeting, just discussing that how the municipalities are responsible for developing the bylaws around public consumption of, you know, now these decriminalized hard drugs, so cocaine, meth, crack. It's going to be a concern of the police not having the authorities to do anything with it if somebody's consuming those in public. So we're working on that with the city. First Nations policing initiative in the province, just looking at again, the best way to deliver service to First Nations communities. Doesn't directly affect us, but also I think it's a good thing to see moving forward. And I think they're going about it the right way with it being a provincial initiative rather than individual First Nations trying to set up their own policing. I think they'll have that whole economy of scales piece working for them, and then have the ability also to, if it goes the way it sounds like it's going to go, they have the ability to transfer some people around, and you're not just working in one community your whole career. We had a good update from the federal Crown. So the two key court rulings that affect policing and prosecution right now are Jordan, and there's some debate of how to pronounce this, but Textira. And that was a ruling around what I was talking about earlier, which is, again, driving up some of the costs, is using search warrants to access data in different technologies. So cell phones, computers, tablets, whatever it might be. There's issues around whether or not when you write a search warrant to get the device, you know, you have to be conscious of the fact to include details in the search warrant that your intention is, and you're getting authorized to actually then, you know, in theory, enter the device and take what's inside of that out as well. And some people forget that, so then you're left writing a secondary search warrant to get the information from those devices. But where it kind of comes to a head is the defense raising the issues of whether or not that's a tangible property that you need to have permission to retain. So if we seize somebody's car, for example, and say, well, it was used in a crime and we've got a search warrant for it and we want to keep it, you have to file what they call a 5.2, which is basically reporting to the justice or the judge that you've executed the warrant and this is what you've seized, so that they know what's happened with it. And then after generally every 90 days, you have to file for an extension to keep that property. And if you don't, you have to return it to the rightful owner. So the issue with data, and I ran into the same issue with production orders that I did up for banking records and stuff, is they're what they call certified true copies. It's not, the bank retains the record. In this case, the phone could be returned to the person, but the information you've taken off the phone likely is still on the phone unless it's, child pornography and stuff. Obviously, we wouldn't leave on a device, but their personal information, their banking information, all that stuff would stay on the phone. So they haven't lost anything. They would get it back. But defense has argued that because we have that data or that material, that we have to keep putting extensions to keep it in. And there's been a number of high profile cases that have actually been charges stayed or whatever because of the process of officers not doing that. But again, the federal crown's going to argue that there's, the person isn't out anything and there's no expectation that that would be returned to the person because they already have it. Bank records, the bank still has the records. The client still has access to the records. We just have a copy of them. But again, unfortunately, it's a bit of a game that defense has played, and it's causing a lot of issues with process and arguments that due process and continuity and those types of things weren't followed correctly. And in some cases are being thrown out. So again, we have to be aware of that, make sure we're doing that until the court rules that that's not required any longer. And just a quick note on Jordan. Jordan is basically the time clock that starts ticking when somebody's been charged before it has to be, a timely appearance in court. But I think everybody's kind of aware of that one. ALPRs, which are the automated license plate readers. Two things with those, and I've commented on this at previous meetings, but for everybody's interest, it's a super tool when it's working. It can process a lot of information in a short period of time, but it also has the ability to identify when people have outstanding warrants and things like that, like a number of people and some fairly high risk people have been captured because the ALPR reader will say, oh, this car is registered to so-and-so and their spouse is this person who has a Canada-wide warrant, or the registered owner has a Canada-wide warrant. So you can tweak it for those things. The second issue with it is that BC has gone away from the validation tags. So by looking, the police can't tell any longer whether a plate's valid or not valid, and therefore whether insurance is valid or not. So that will have access to the data bank for that. So be able to tell us if somebody goes by whether they have valid registration and insurance. A bunch of the rest of it was in camera, so I don't think I can comment too much on it other than there is some funding coming for it. And now we'll have to look at maybe what's best for the department because there's a couple of options at different costs. So we'll look at that going forward, but certainly be a nice tool to get. The Cybercrime Committee, which I'm the chair of for the provincial committee, we've just determined, and again, I keep saying I'll give you a short summary and they keep getting longer, but the issue with cybercrime is it's such a big umbrella of things that fall into the cybercrime. Firstly, it's whether technology is the target of the attack. So we see like lots of, institutions, factories, technology that's proprietary or something is the target of the attack. And then the second type of cybercrime is when technology is the tool used for the attack, but isn't the target itself. So, and then there's a wide range in there, but a lot of those phishing schemes, the ransomware attacks and stuff, and how it attacks the technology, it's to unfreeze the people's stuff to pay a ransom for it. Romance scams, there's just a bunch of them that, again, the technology is used to get at the person, but it's not the target of the attack. And then the next biggest issue, which is, and I've been dealing with this for a number of years, and I don't know if we're really that much closer to an answer, but jurisdiction is a huge issue because lots of times these perpetrators are in other countries. In fact, they're on the other side of the world. So whose jurisdiction is it? And even provincially, like you'll have somebody sitting in Nelson potentially perpetrating frauds on people in Kelowna and Vancouver and Saskatoon. So is it where the person is located or is it where the victim is at? And, you know, how do you coordinate that with other police departments and who's the lead on it? So it's just, it's kind of a quagmire. So what we're doing now is we've kind of built a little bit of an educational piece around that. And then we're sending a survey out to all the different police departments. We're part of the Association of Chiefs just to say, okay, for your department, where's the greatest pressure? Where do you have the biggest strain on capacity for your department investigating these types of things? Just so we can get a little bit more focus on the committee and then try and, you know, prioritize things and maybe just work on one piece at a time. You know, whether or not a number of these things go to the federal policing, even though they're interprovincial and oftentimes international, unless there's a significant threat to the national security, generally there isn't the capacity for the federal departments to investigate it. So, you know, anything that we're likely going to get here is never going to make it to the federal level. And likely we're going to be responsible for investigating it. And it could be, you know, a sophisticated tech crime person working out of Nigeria that has attacked a number of citizens in Nelson. And, you know, and as you investigate it, they without doubt explode. I had one file where it was somebody cloned the immigration minister's site and was using that. And it was just tragic because it was targeting, you know, the poorest and most vulnerable people already who had very little and were often fleeing a country trying to get to Canada, and they're taken advantage of by somebody like this trying to say, you know, if you pay this $500,000 fee, we can expedite you through this program. So, you know, they're very difficult files to investigate, but you also, you can't turn a blind eye to it because it's, you know, it's almost always those types of ones that are targeting the most vulnerable people, the ones that can't afford to lose that. So we'll get all this information back, coordinate it, and then I'll be doing a presentation in February at the next BC ACP in-person meeting in Burnaby. And then, as I said, hopefully get some direction and provincially we can kind of coordinate a response. Go on to community policing.
Oh, no, you did them all there. Okay. Yeah, sure. Go on to community policing.
So community policing, as I reported in the last, we had a very busy summer and fall. Things slowed down a little bit at the start of winter, but one thing we did have was the 12 Days of Giving, which is a toy and food drive kind of driven through the various first responders in the community. So police and fire and EHS worked together. Had some really great people that are kind of coordinating it all. And we had you know, it's just amazing to me. Like last year was the first year I did it. The amount of toys and food hampers and things that were collected. Like we had 2 police trucks, a fire truck, and 2 ambulances. We couldn't get all the stuff in those 5 different vehicles. So a lot of it had to be hauled up after to the Salvation Army, where it's not like they got so much last year that they've had a little bit left from last year even. So just a fantastic program. So thanks to the people that helped with that, and especially all the people and the businesses that donated and made that a success. And the Adventure Hotel hosted the event and hosted a brunch again, which was fantastic last year and fantastic this year. So it was great that they did that for us. Look forward to it again next year. The Nelson Police Foundation, there's been quite a few updates through the summer and fall, but not really anything to add at this time.
Okay, any questions about anything the chief has said? There is a lot there. I just wanted to say ECOM, everybody knows what that is, but I was just trying to catch that acronyms, but that's about 911 service. So what happens when you call 911? And I'm just going to leave it at that, but just in case you didn't know what ECOM was, it's way more complicated than that, but that's what that is.
We have our own here, right?
We don't use
We
econ.
have our own.
If you hear any suggestion of using e-com, run away.
Yes.
But it is a process in the rest of the province where people, when you dial 911, what it's the waterfall of what happens.
Yeah.
Any questions for the chief, board members? No? Okay, so thank you for that update. I don't see any need for any resolutions there, so just receive for information. We are on to item 8, the deputy chief's report on restorative justice.
I'm going to keep mine very brief.
I said that too.
Yeah.
Restorative justice, it's doing very well. The programs, the referrals are up. We continue to be in the public schools here in Nelson, doing the ONIT program, and we've gone on off-site location to allow them for a little more confidentiality. We meet with members that are applying to the restorative justice program. So that's my update.
Yay.
Wow.
Nicely done.
So I can beat you, deputy chief, though. That's number 9 says chair's report. And as the chair earlier said, this is about day 34. It was interesting to think that I started my very first meeting after I was inaugurated was actually to come to do the budget for the police. So it was a very interesting, having normally, I mean, all my years as councillor, I've never attended actually a police board meeting. So that was just a learning experience of its own. So anyhow, perhaps as we move along and I have more exposure to things, I too may have a report in the future. So item number 10. And I do want to recognize that it was the 125th anniversary, like the city of the police force. And I did comment on my opening remarks when I was inaugurated about the policing. And I actually think the police force was kind of here before we actually had the original papers signed, making the city of Nelson a city, because it was quite a busy little spot. And we did have, a few jail and some necessary requirements for policing because of the number of bars and brothels. And, I guess minors were kind of a rough bunch. So we needed some law and order even before it started. But it says here 125 years, and it's been great to have a police department in our little city for that long.
Picture. I have pictures of my presentation. I forgot
Oh,
to
great.
pass it around, but for the 12 days of giving, but just because there was a couple of youth in it, we can't.
I love the Christmas sweaters.
Picture in the paper, right?
Yeah, that one was.
Not that one, but yeah, it was the first responders who did it. Yeah.
And I'm so looking forward to attending that. And of course, I work in healthcare and I retire, and then what happens is that 3 years later, I get a positive COVID test. So I thought, I can't go out to that on the Saturday, but like you say, next year I will. I'll be there.
Sorry, Sue.
That's great. So item 10A, we have correspondence and information, and we have in your package there a number of thank yous. That are listed there. From the road. Look at that. And that Santa has that's a real.
Yes. My wife and I got a picture working in a sleigh.
Nice.
Lovely. Thank you, Chief, for serving. And a lovely comment from a citizen on an incident that happened at the clubhouse, and a good work with the police at that time. So we'll accept those correspondence and information. And 10B, we have the letter from West Kootenay People for Racial Justice. And already addressed that, let's try to find a date that will work for all parties, that we can get together and meet in January, hopefully, and look at maybe we can have a meeting every 6 months, or depending on how we see the need going forward. I look forward to arranging those meetings. So And we're at 11, new business. And that includes, we have to have recommendation on this. The, it's in your package, the meeting schedule for 2023. And you will note that there's been a little flag there, and that was based on a conflict that I have. And I'm supposed to be in Kimberley, I think, on March the 8th, which would be the Wednesday of the regular meeting. It's the local government is meeting for training for new counselors. And as the mayor, I would like to be able to attend with my counselors, just encourage them while they're at that meeting. So I am asking for that change of date. So it's been flagged that March the 7th will be the one Tuesday that we would be using in 2023. Is there a motion to accept the calendar? Moved, it's been seconded. All those in favor of the schedule? And that's carried. And I just have a question to Shiloh. I imagine that if it turns out for some reason that we need to change a date, we can always do an adjustment to that.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you so much for that. And then 11B, there's a number of board committees that the police board has, and there's a draft list there. And I'm assuming, looking at this, that where it says director is an open spot. So the finance committee looks fully up. Now, again, this is where, not having been here before, so I'll just be honest, is this also when you change them up, or do we have the discussion about all of these, or just?
You can change them up. Yeah, this is the perfect time to do that if they want to.
It was my understanding that Lindsay wanted to be on the recruitment and selection committee. Yeah? Okay. Was that official or?
No.
Oh, can we, if nobody else wants to be on it, does anyone have any objections or?
No objections.
Okay, so we'll put her name in there then.
And are we gonna have, I don't see it on here, but are we gonna have a liaison with the EDI committee? Or I don't know what we're calling it,
The advisory committee?
the advisory committee? I just don't see it on, like, are we gonna have?
The diversity in it,
Yeah, the diversity.
Has been on that.
What's
there'll
that?
always be a board member, I think, as a member.
Yeah, like, that's, well, just because you're, got the restorative justice liaison and the board foundation liaison on this list, but not.
Not listed.
It should be listed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I would be interested in working with that. With the EDI committee, what are we calling it? Diversity Action Committee? EDI committee? EDI, it was Diversity Action and then it changed, right? Yeah.
It could be evolving.
Yeah.
It's not the latest, have got a federal conference and we're calling it something else and something else. So we just have to be flexible.
Yeah, so it was equity, diversity,
Inclusion, yeah,
Now there's sensitivity, there's the different acronyms.
yeah, absolutely.
So continuing down the list, so recruitment and selection, there's one spot open there for a director. We put in Lindsay. Director Horswell, are you still willing to be on that committee?
Well, unless someone else wants, I'm happy to be on.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So that's the one where if we had to look for a new chief.
And accommodation and
Yeah,
award.
No, I believe it's not.
No, it's,
No, was it the HR one?
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
because I'm
Because the chief's on it, so I don't
Oh,
think you should be there. Recruitment and selection, I would imagine this is for staffing in general for
Okay.
the organization.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So moving down the list, we have accommodations and awards, 2 or more directors, and it looks like both directors are open, and I'm just trying to, somebody's going to give a report about the BCAPC, which looks like that reflects back into into this eventually.
There's one element of it, yeah, that does. I'm the representative to the BCAPB. Yeah.
Thanks. All right.
So yes, there's a proposal for an award scheme from the provincial body, but I think that's separate from the commendations and awards that are
Okay.
internally generated. In fact, I think the one for the BCAPB will be board level
Okay.
as opposed to internal among the staff.
I saw that and I kind of was like, okay, do they sort of fit together a little bit? Because it would be nice if we already had a committee that did one thing that the committee
go ahead
could
and
do
do that
some,
too,
to
yeah.
do some of that work. And it
Well-
turns out that some of that work can be done by this committee. I could see
Totally.
that being, this is a small board. We want to make sure that we're not spreading people also too thin.
Yeah.
So,
But we need two directors. there.
directors, we need two directors here, so.
I'll step for the commendation and award one.
Yeah.
I'd actually be interested in doing board governance as well.
So we got Devin, and so anybody else wanting to that, we could start with one and then we can keep moving on.
I'm new, I'll just make it up as I go.
Okay. So Nelson, for governance. So I hear Devin, you'd like to be on that.
Yeah.
I'm interested in governance too.
Okay, and Sue. And Jane or Lena, any thoughts? Everybody's good? Good. Geez, we're not gonna be able to handle the secret ballots for voting? Thanks. And human resources, minimum of 2 directors, maximum 3. We have Sue and we have Jane there. And is there anybody else that's interested in that? I'm trying to think if this is regarding hiring the.
And performance review.
Okay. And that's by policy done every year?
Should be done every year, but we have agreed to, and unfortunately have had to cancel some of our quarterly meetings
Okay,
just to do.
so there are just some
Yeah.
ongoing, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we've got the 2, so I think we can sort of move on from there. And Director Adams, I see you're the representative there and you're enjoying that job, obviously, and let's continue on. Excellent. Restorative Justice, Director Horsfeld.
Although I haven't done very much lately.
We discussed before that kind of Raj has that there may not be the need for that one so much
Exactly.
anymore.
That used to be that there was an advisory committee that worked with the program because the restorative justice staff person was working on her own and
Oh,
needed, support. And so there was an advisory committee, but then when the deputy chief position came up, and also that position became somebody who's staff of the police
Right.
department.
right.
A lot of work can be done internally, and so there's less of a need. But there used to be like a liaison between. And
But now
and
Raj
again,
gives us
also
regular
Raj
reports, so-
reports at board
Right,
meetings, so
right.
I don't think there is a need for that.
Okay, well, we've got your name there, and I'm just sort of thinking, let's leave that there and maybe run through another year, and Shiloh, if you could flag that for, depending on what the activity is in 2023, that gets removed as a, police board committee. So let's just make sure that we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah, I think it's good to think about it because there may be something, from the community that's missed on that committee. So, we don't have an advisory committee, but there's no reason why I couldn't meet with Raj on a regular basis and bring,
Yeah.
issues that might relate to that program.
Yeah, so I think we should leave it status quo. We've got somebody that wants to be the director involved. And then we'll kind of assess how this year goes. And then based sort of on that feedback, we'll decide whether or not we
Right.
remove it from that.
Right, because I think there has to be clarity of the role of the person who's representative.
And you're also the foundation liaison. You're busy. Very good. And now I've just put over here in my other column here, the EDI committee, and you're saying that you've been on that. Is there room, because I don't know what the,
Yeah,
because,
I definitely would be interested in being involved. Like, it doesn't have to be as a liaison, but I would like to be involved with the EDI committee. That looks like we can discuss.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, totally.
It's, again, it's just evolving.
Yeah, absolutely. That's, no,
So
for
we
sure.
don't even have a sort of a committee established as yet, right? We're still the initial group that got the committee going.
Okay.
But one of the first things coming up in the new year is, you know, us participating in the blanket exercise. So
That's right.
I
On the
think you signed up for
26th,
that,
right?
right?
Yeah.
That's open to everybody.
so I think that's an evolving committee, and I think that I mean, I'm glad to see that this committee has been struck. So, and then as terms reference and whatever comes along, but I really do encourage everybody to participate in the blanket exercise. I unfortunately I have a conflict, and it's whether or not I can get rid of the conflict just based on the day. I've done the blanket exercise before. It's very moving. And I really recommend that if you have never done a blanket exercise, that it's kind of like required work. This isn't even like an option. The blanket exercise is very moving and can be very emotional for a number of people. And I think it's great that it's being offered. And Chief, this is open for your members as well.
Yes, encouraging them to participate as well. I've been a part of a couple of them in Saskatchewan, Alberta. It just ties that visual piece to.
Totally.
Yeah, it is good.
And you know, all the work that we're trying to do, the EDI, like a lot of it has to start with us working on ourselves.
Yeah.
And this is our opportunity for our own consciousness to be raised, right? Like, and I've been through that once too, and it was amazing.
So
Same.
I'm sorry. I may not be appropriate to bring this up, but I am a member of the Restorative Justice Group. I have been on the regional group and now also with the city group. And I think it would be wonderful to invite all of the volunteers with RJ, be part of the blanket exercise too. That's possible.
we can take that under, like, I know that there was some concern about the size. That was the only thing, is that when the early, about how many people, we don't want to make it too big, because I'm just sort of, I'm looking at this committee, this diversity committee, because I don't know who's on it. Is it hopefully like all of this committee, which must have some external community people on it, are all participating. So I don't know what the numbers are looking like.
I think that, you know, it's important for people on the board and so on, right? Because we have to start training ourselves. But in terms of more opportunities for the blanket exercise, that can be like Coins does it all the time. It can be arranged. Yeah. Future.
Like even just for the restorative justice. people
Yes, it could be any
themselves, yeah.
group, you know, like I did it at the United Church. I can't remember what group that was, but I was part of a group of 14 of us, right? So, and it's something that Coins offers on a regular basis. Yeah. So that's good. Like I was actually just going to talk to Raj and say that Kathy should be there if she's able to, as the staff person. Yeah.
Yeah, once we start looking at the numbers, and if we can put some more people in, it makes sense that we just take the circle of, okay, it's got to be the department, the board,
The committee.
the committee,
Yeah.
and then if it turns out that there aren't that many people that can come, that we could look at, because we do restorative justice as part of,
Yeah. a
like,
program.
as a program that's attached here, is that we would then look at that group and kind of increase the circles that way without, you know, and seeing who is available to be able to participate. So I think that's great. So is that all of the committees? Do I have the full list here? Okay.
Just a question. Sorry, I wonder if we can ask Director McKay about, because she's not here, of course.
Yeah, I know that's,
Just confirm with her about the committee she said she was interested in before, which we,
I can do that, yeah.
yeah, and then ask her maybe about the commendations, because there's only one
That's
director on there,
yeah.
but I think everything else is looking like it's got.
Yeah, everything's full. And I mean,
Obviously.
we've had the minimum of 2 at human resources.
Yeah.
Again, I don't want people to be feeling that they're stretched, so I'm not too sure that we need to have 3 there. And I guess it says here at the bottom, it says in the fancy language that I can show up for anything.
Or not, as your schedule permits.
What's the NPA representative?
Nelson Police Association.
Okay.
Okay, so, Charlie, you'll just confirm about, Lindsay, and then can we have, a motion to accept, and we'll keep our fingers crossed that Lindsay, wants to be on the recruitment and selection committee.
Should we wait and finalize it next meeting when she's there?
Yeah.
Sure.
I would feel happier
Yeah.
having her
So
input.
then a motion to refer the appointment of police board committee members to the January meeting is in order. Okay, it's been moved, seconded, and doesn't need any discussion. And all in favor? Okay, and that's carried. Okay, and then of course the figures off. So I'll try the paper version. I'm trying to move into the next century, so.
I mean, the current
We
century.
are looking at 11C fees. So that the Nelson Police Board accept the revised Nelson Police Department fee schedule as presented. Chief, did you want to comment on that at all, or?
We already know why.
Yeah, there's a few I'm looking at that look a little low and a couple that look a little high, but overall, I think they're more or less within the realm of where they should be.
Okay. And board members, any discussion on the fee schedule you see in front of you?
Well, I mean, some of them like are pretty big jumps, you know, like for adoption, for example, that's, you know, a 200% increase. I'm just kind of curious. I am curious as to how the fees were set, and I mean, I know the cost of everything is going up. I'm just kind of curious what the justification is for these kind of big jumps.
So they haven't been elevated in years.
Okay.
It's basically been done province-wide, based on province analysis through BPD and other departments in the province. And this is what these have come out to be based on where the province, or the municipal departments are charging.
Okay.
There's like fingerprints on their own. When I was in the RCMPs, $50 forever, like, and I'd be surprised if they got higher than that now.
Okay. Okay.
So what I'm hearing is that we raised these where we did based on some comparables. So we went, looked at other municipal departments to see what their charges were.
Correct.
Okay. Seems reasonable to me that nobody just sort of sat there and thought they'd pencil in some new numbers.
Question, the note about Mountain Lake Seniors Community Volunteers. So they're an exception and they're only $10. Is that subsidized or something, or why is that lower than everybody else?
I don't have an answer for that one there.
Jane, I believe it was subsidized. They do get subsidized.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, at least they did in the past. So I have to make the assumption that they still are
Like the organization pays for
the remainder amount. So
Okay.
That's kind of interesting that it's just that they are there and they don't, I don't see it for like Jubilee Manor or anything, because I know that
I don't
all
know.
these places now are.
It's been like that
Recording.
since probably 2018, I believe. Last time we looked at the fee structure.
Is Jubilee Manor not funded by the Ministry of Health? Like, and
Well,
the other ones are
it is an
private?
IHA facility, but I know that volunteers have to be clear. So I'm just wondering, yeah, you still have to have a criminal records check there.
Yes.
And I know, well, I mean, I'm an employee of IHA, and I know that when I have to get hold my license, I pay for it. The employer doesn't pay for mine. I just would find it odd that the employer would pay for volunteers to have it. So it's an interesting question to me when Director Byers brings that up in terms of the volunteer fee there. And, you know, most people love volunteering, so
It used to be.
more than willing to pay the
It
fee,
used
but for
to
some
be-
volunteers, they
It used
can't.
to be at one time that the police gave it to us for free.
Yeah,
And we
Yeah.
volunteered with a nonprofit.
We never, Harrison Pete is in charge for volunteer letters too. Just have to confirm you're in the jurisdiction that the volunteering is within the jurisdiction.
Right.
It's usually
right.
Yes, it's free.
Yeah.
I think the RCMP still, it's free, right? It's in
as far as
there.
I know.
Well, and the other comment I have is an adoptive parent. That's a big jump.
Yeah.
Maybe we should be charging birth parents for their criminal reference checks as well. Just, I mean, it's a bigger issue than the police can deal with, but
Well, we're not required, but
But I was gonna say, it would be nice to
Yeah.
implement that sometimes.
right, we think we should be required to have a.
that's what I mean.
criminal record
Yeah,
check,
yeah. Mhm.
We're not required, but
It's a lot of money.
Sorry, I'm,
on the side.
Right.
Is there anything here that we would like to pull out to have any further investigations regarding?
I would like to, I'm curious about the volunteer, especially people volunteering with nonprofits. And I suppose that my other question is like, you know, especially for like volunteering, for example, what kind of ways that we are able to accommodate people who cannot maybe necessarily make those. Like so $25 a month could, or $25 in a month could be a big expense for somebody, right? Like, is there like a process for people to have fees waived or subsidized in any way?
I guess the question would be whether it's the organization's
yeah.
responsibility or the police department's responsibility,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Perhaps this could be as simple as a phone call, and perhaps we could ask Shiloh to phone Mountain Lakes and tell them that she wants to volunteer and find out what the process is.
Yeah.
Volunteering and what they say.
Yeah.
It just stands out so oddly there.
The red ink helps.
But don't forget that the criminal record check concept for volunteers is for the safety of the people the volunteers interact with.
Mhm.
It's not intended to penalize the volunteer.
Yeah.
So it's the community safety aspect of it that this fee represents. So I don't really have a problem with it from that perspective.
I agree, and I think it's the organization, like I know that Community Services, we reimburse our volunteers.
Yeah.
For that cost.
Yeah, okay.
And so maybe that's the question to ask is like, I want to volunteer, but the cost is like prohibitive,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that's what I hear is the question is that the
Mhm.
cost is prohibitive. And it's some kind of waiver. So, a motion is required here in terms of the fee schedule for 2023. And if we can, we'll just have Charlotte maybe report back to us about that. Obviously, it's been there for some time. It's not a new addition, this one. And it hasn't gone up. Is there somebody feel comfortable with moving receipt of the fee schedule for 2023? Has been moved. Is there a seconder? Seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? And that carries. And we are now at the action list. And the action list 12A is there anything else on the list that the board wishes to address tonight? Anybody got any concerns or issues? And seeing none, we'll move on to the director's report. And so Director Adams, if you would mind giving us the update.
Yes, I'm going to make it extremely brief because you've all had a chance I actually gave you a written report. So you've had a chance to look at that. Are we going to discuss the awards in camera
So
or here?
I think it's there,
Okay.
for sure.
So there was also distributed a proposal from the BCAPB about the awards that they are prepared to support through marketing and different kinds of materials that we can use in order to increase community engagement with the force. And there are three of them: community-driven recognition, supporting our governance, and excellence in innovation. And the idea is that, as the mayor said, we could have our commendations and awards committee look at suggestions and applications for people to receive these awards. And the BCAPB will actually create I don't know what their source is, but they have plaques that they will provide us. The cost to us, I think, is $350 for the year. They're asking that of each of the municipal police forces, and that'll cover the cost of the plaques and the printing and marketing materials and everything else. It's just, the intent is just to increase the visibility of good things that are being done by our sworn and civilian members and in their interactions with the community. And it's an opportunity for us to also have some public exposure for activities that are going on all the time. So it's totally at our discretion. We don't have to give out any of them. We can give out one or three or, whatever we feel comfortable with. And you have the proposal laid out in the documentation. So does anybody have any comments or questions? You think it's a good idea? Irrelevant?
Clarification question. So this is for sworn and civilian members of NPD to receive the awards, or is it broader than that?
I think it's for them to receive the awards. And the intent is to reward community engagement more than what they already do in their day-to-day jobs.
Yeah, so the overview here is that morale is decreasing across the province due to increases in crime, understaffing, local community members. Much of the news coverage is negative, is aware that many positive impacts and successes in municipal police departments that do not get attention or exposure.
But who would assess that, like, who would be providing that,
They're supposed to originate with the board. So it's for us to suggest things that merit getting the awards. And maybe we'd be looking to the chief and the deputy chief to highlight things for us that we may not see on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, that's here too.
And I think, and one of these awards, when I'm looking at the launch and the information, and thank you for giving us so much information to look at this, is that the Community-Driven Recognition Award, the nominators looks like it comes from community members, which I really think helps with that concept of community engagement, where we could see that that somebody's actually bringing forward that they would like to recognize an officer, or they would like to recognize a program that we have here in the Nelson Police Department. So, I mean, I think this is an excellent idea, and because there's no specific criteria, like we don't have to meet a deadline here to have this done. Really, probably the thing would be is the board have a comfort level with the $350, and then if that's agreed upon, I would say that that the selection of these, like the selection of awards and such at the City of Nelson, would be an in-camera discussion going forward, that if we want to implement giving out these awards, and then at the appropriate time would be then released to the public, the names that we have had.
I'm also thinking that because there's so much material involved in it, that, it would be probably best, and especially with Lindsay not being here, to leave it to make a decision till next meeting.
Right.
But wanted to bring it forward for people to ask questions and see if there's more information that you would need me to get for you.
Yeah, thank you for that, Sue. Like, I think we need to think a little bit more.
I do have a question because I don't understand. So, the $350 fee, where does, I don't know where that money comes from. Like when,
From our budget.
It comes from our
but
budget.
where in the budget, I suppose, is my,
Well, we have
Yeah.
money every year that the board can use as it wishes, either for travel to conferences or something like this.
Okay.
So we do have a budget line item
Yeah, it
for the
comes from
board.
that line.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would like to think about this
Yeah.
too. Although I will say I have slightly less enthusiasm for supporting our governance award than I do for the community one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I would like to see a little bit more expansion on what supporting our governance.
It
looks
seems to
like.
be like they present things to us at the board and get an award for that, which is
Yeah.
not really,
Yeah.
it's hard to get my head
And I
around.
guess the lovely part is we don't have to go out three of them. I always,
Yeah.
I sometimes struggle at the city about, okay, we're giving out all these awards and
Yeah,
we just give out one instead of five, or like, there's,
it's a very North American kind of thing. I don't get too excited about awards.
yeah. Okay, so I hear, there's been the suggestion, of referral, so, on the motion of referral to, is January soon enough, or do you want to put this off to February? I'm just trying, I don't want to load up a docket too full. Everybody's okay with January, that referral of this to January?
Yeah, I think so. I
Yeah.
don't think it should take us more than a few minutes to
Okay,
make a determination.
okay, and it's been moved. Is there a seconder for referral? Okay, the motion to refer is not debatable. All those in favor? And that's carried.
So for the rest of the report, I want to just briefly say that you guys have all received emails about the governance training, which is all online. It may at some point in the future be in person, but for the moment, it's probably going to stay this way, at least for the next couple of years. The Justice Institute of BC, the JIBC training, there has been no change in the cost and no discussion at the BCAPB level of, that's the British Columbia Association of Police Boards, of trying to find funding in some other way. They're trying to put as much pressure as possible on the Justice Institute, but they aren't getting anywhere. They don't really have much leverage. They are intending to increase the capacity, but the cost will probably stay at $23,000 per recruit. E-com, we're going to talk about later. Decriminalization, actually, the only comment that we heard there was that there's going to be training available, a webinar for police officers available in January. What they're going to be able to provide you, I have no idea. But he said in 2023, they're expecting to have an online course for the officers, not just the webinar. So I don't know how long it'll take for them to develop that. So the issue is that decriminalization is coming, it's January 31st, I believe, right? The date that it comes into force. And the police officers, as the chief said, are just wondering, what do we do? How do we handle it in terms of enforcement and so on. Surrey. Yeah.
Surrey.
We don't really need to talk about it now, but we're going to get a full report from the local board member in January. We have a meeting on January 20th. So, who knows what will have been in the news by then, but I just keep thinking, if they go back, what happens to all those people that left the VPD to go work in Surrey? And will the VPD take them back? Anyway, that's, it's not my problem.
Yeah. Well, what I've read is there's officers from all over the country
Yeah,
who
I know.
are located to Surrey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a mess.
Whenever I start to feel like, oh, we have a lot to do, I think, oh, I'm not on the Surrey board.
No kidding. Holy.
So that brings the last subject matter, which is the conference. Next May, the BCAPB conference is going to be held in Nelson. It's usually in the Lower Mainland, but they are going to come to see us this coming year. We've put it off now for 3 years. The proposed theme is relationships, and how does the board help the police respond to the community? How do we get there? What kind of data analysis do we need, or other kinds of other forms of gathering information? And there may be other theme ideas, either from you or, from other people in the BCAPV. But I'm looking for input on that to take back to the committee.
I think we're looking for something catchy. So if there's any creative people in the room. Because we know we're going to be publicizing the conference, right? So we need something catchy.
Might I ask that, so does the organization organize this, or does this fall to this police board and Nelson to organize this?
Actually, it's kind of
Do
funny
everything.
because, we've been quite enthusiastic and had lots of ideas. Ann NACV was on the committee meeting too. And both Veronica and Charla were just totally thrilled because they've never had a police board that had any interest in organizing anything. So they've always had to do it themselves from a distance. So we have actually committed to a few things.
Voluntarily, right? Because
Yeah.
the organization is pretty, like, they're all set up to do the conference. But we just wanted to be,
So Veronica has completely done the budget. She's done all of the arrangements with the hotels and the other venues. We're having an abbreviated conference. It's usually over 2.5 to 3 days. And it's going to be a Thursday and a Friday to allow people, because of the limited travel here, to allow people to get home on the weekend as opposed to making them stay Saturday morning for the AGM and then not being able to get out till Sunday, for example. But all of that has all been organized. There's going to be a reception Thursday evening at Touchstones, and the catering has all been organized. So a lot of that is done. Our responsibility is going to be entertainment and speakers. And so really the things that we need to talk about, and, we can save it for another time, is who do we want to have as our speakers and what will be our theme? And it needs to be applicable to all the municipal police forces, not just Nelson.
Thank you. Well, that's something worthwhile to think about. I think we'll probably just leave that right there on the agenda for every agenda coming for the next couple of months.
Definitely. I'll have something a little bit more detailed to give you next month. So, or I'll try to circulate it before our meeting so you guys can see what's already planned.
Excellent. Excellent. So no questions for Director Adams?
Adam?
Sorry.
It's
not
okay.
Bob Adams on that, on council.
I know, it's an automatic English speaking thing.
My apologies.
No problem.
Okay.
No.
So item 14 is the next meeting is going to be on January the 11th here at 4:30. And at this point, there is now a motion to adjourn as an order. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, and that carries. So thank you to the public for coming this evening, and